everybody. Artistry, Finesse with you on Wednesday night. The Penguins fall to the Flyers 2-1. Finesse, I think when I go to sleep tonight, which will be shortly, I'm just going to see shots going wide as soon as I close my eyes. Shot after shot going wide. No variability.
No, variability is lacking tremendously. I mean, this is the standard formula for how the Pens pretty much lose games when they lose games, which, to fairness to the Penguins, is not that often. It was a dominant first 10 minutes, and then the Flyers scored. And then some positives happened, like the Pens kept it together and kept dominating, I thought, throughout most of the game, despite Olczyk insisting that the Flyers were playing a great third period, which I thought was ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, they got to bury the puck. That's what it comes down to. The Penguins had 6 shots on net in the third period, but it felt like the Penguins had the puck the whole time. I mean, the Flyers only had 3 shots in the third period. You got to put these away. You got to put them away. That's it. I mean, eventually, maybe, law of averages, it comes around, but the games are 60 minutes long, so you have to do it within a 60-minute time frame.
Yeah, and you need to know how to battle offensively. It's like on a night like tonight, the Penguins are like a writer who's just staring at the page, waiting for that perfect sentence to present itself. But you just need to write. You just can't wait for the perfect. Just put something on paper. Get pucks on the net. Bat away at rebounds. It's on a night like tonight, it's just not flowing. You have to manufacture offense.
Are you suggesting that the Penguins fire Dan Bylsma and hire Sean Connery from Finding Forrester, who made that kid write? He just gave him like paper and a typewriter and said, just start typing, and eventually you're going to write the most brilliant writing thing ever? Is that what you're saying?
I haven't seen that movie, but Sean Connery was definitely onto something in that movie. I will say this about Dan Bylsma. I think it's time for us to really call him out onto the carpet. I once had a boss who made the point of telling me I hadn't done anything wrong, but he said, "Don't be mistaken. I'm not afraid to call you out onto the carpet. If you do something wrong, I'm going to call you out onto the carpet." I never understood what a carpet had to do with anything.
Wait, so I just want to be clear. You're calling him on the carpet. You're not taking him to the woodshed?
I'm calling him out onto the carpet, which to me is a step above taking him to the woodshed.
So you're saying he's already been to the woodshed?
Yeah, he may be in the woodshed now. I'm calling him out of the woodshed onto the carpet.
Okay.
Because I don't think there's been a lot of talk about this. We really haven't addressed it. We've touched on it, but his refusal to match lines is so absurd at this point. What's the rationale? What possible reason could there be to say, regardless of who you're throwing out there, I'm just going to do my thing? What's the explanation? Is there one?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's like, all right, if they match a certain line against Crosby and Malkin are still better than that line, which is true. But Crosby and Malkin are more better than other lines on the other team. So why not try to have a bigger difference between who they're playing against?
That's the point. Back in the day, if ever we were fortunate enough to get a matchup of Lemieux's line against some other team's fourth line scrubs, and back then the fourth lines were really abominable. I mean, you had guys that could barely skate on the fourth line. If that happened, it was like a Pavlovian response. Like people would just start to drool, like in anticipation of what Lemieux was going to do to that line. And the contrast might not be as stark in this day and age when Crosby's out there against somebody's fourth line, but you still want to look for that matchup, right?
Yeah, and then the flip side of that, especially when you're playing a team like the Flyers, is the matchup the Flyers won against the Penguins is not the Flyers' first line against the Penguins' first line. Like, you look at Boston, like they'll try to put Bergeron or Krejci out against Crosby. So you're sort of like canceling the first lines out a little bit. But with the Flyers, they want to put Couturier out there, which has the if the Penguins allow that to happen, not only does it have Crosby out against the guy who the Flyers want to have out against Crosby, but then you end up with a situation where now the Flyers' first line is out against the Penguins' third line or fourth line, or if there's even a difference between the Penguins' third and fourth line, I don't know. But that's never a favorable matchup for the Penguins. Like, there are some times in some teams where the third line is sort of, you look at it as a defensive line. You want to put them out against the other team's first line. If the Penguins are getting the other team's third line matched against the Penguins' first line, and then it's the opposite situation for the Penguins, that's a huge negative for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is there are favorable matchups for us. Some matchups are more favorable than others. And let's not pretend like you have to be some brilliant tactician to match lines. You really don't.
Craig Berube is matching lines.
Yeah, Craig Berube is matching lines. You just need to see who's on the ice for the other team and say, hey, I'd like to have this line or that line against that team. Hey, guys, at the next opportunity, get over the boards and go on the ice. That's really the extent of it. Let's demystify this a little bit. There's no magic to it.
No, it's not. It's the only thing that a coach is really supposed to do. I mean, what else is a coach supposed to do? And the definition of a hockey coach's job is to run the bench. You change the lines. You tell who you say you're going out with this guy and this guy, and you're going out now, or you're going out at the next whistle. I mean, that's it. That's the whole job.
Right, and Pierre Maguire might make it seem like you're solving the complex algorithm when you match lines, but in fact, you could match lines when you're pretty much half asleep. You could be like sitting with a pint of Jack Daniels on the bench, completely obliterated, drifting off to sleep, and you could match lines.
I'm going to make it. I'm going to go even farther. I don't even think you need a coach to match lines. If you just have the players understand who they're supposed to play against and who they're not, they could do it themselves. So the fact that the Penguins don't match lines means they're actively coached not to try to match lines.
If you had different lines wearing different colored jerseys, you could train a chimpanzee to say, if the green line is out for the other team, our red line goes out. You could train an animal to do it.
Right. But let's not act like tonight that the line matching was the difference in the game, because I'll spin this game positive because I don't feel that badly about this loss. I thought the Pens were way better than the Flyers overall. I really, other than this lack of finish, this lack of variability, which we've talked about many times, the Pens were the better team, I thought, for almost the entire game.
Yeah, there's no question about it. That this game it's already behind me. I'm not even thinking about this game. It's the pattern that has developed over a long period of time that continues. That's a little bit disturbing. When you see this dominance at the outset and then a complete inability to adjust when pucks aren't going in, as we've talked about, you gotta change things up. You gotta get a little dirtier.
Yeah, though I will say I was encouraged, and maybe this is sort of just setting the bar really low based on what we've seen before, but I was encouraged by the Penguins' composure throughout the rest of the game, even though the Pens didn't score early despite dominating the first 10 minutes. Even the Flyers scored late in the first, but I still thought the Pens carried play after that. And that's good. That's good. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do, but they don't always do that. So I look at that as a really good thing.
Yeah, no, they were composed. And Chris Letang, we talked about before the game how we just wanted to see him keep his composure, which he did. Unfortunately, he was largely responsible for giving up the game-winning goal when he just decided, I'm not going to play defense in front of the net.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let this guy do what he wants.
I don't understand that, but the most concerning part of that play to me was before that when he just lost the battle on the boards. And I know that the Penguins are sort of coached not to get tied up on the penalty kill. They must be coached that way. I guess I don't know it, but they must be, because it doesn't – there's so many times that the other team is standing unguarded in front of the net. And it must be because the Penguins are coached to not engage, because then you get tied up with a guy and somebody else can be even more open. But yeah, Letang's defense on that goal was atrocious. On the second goal, it was terrible.
I was encouraged very much by the play of Malkin and Crosby, particularly early on. Sid was just flying, like, in the first period, like, I really haven't seen him this season. I thought maybe it was his best period of the season. It was one of those periods where he just completely dominates and, does not reflected on the scoreboard.
Right. And he had 2 breakaways tonight. He was the best player on the ice. No question about it.
Yeah, shot out of a cannon. And Gino played well, too. And he had that nice shot in the third period off the rush, which we were also looking for tonight. I saw some good signs from him.
I did, too. He had a few, weird plays, these odd kind of turnovers. They're a little bit of too much stick handling at both blue lines. But he was so active otherwise and so sort of dominant with the puck that kind of stuff sort of, as long as he's adding a lot of positives, I don't mind him turning it over a couple times, trying to do too much. He was low on my list of concerns. I thought both of them were excellent. And on that power play goal, before that goal, Crosby made a ridiculous backhand pass to the point along the boards that I don't know how he passed it so hard. The way he was, no one's going to remember this play, but it was a special pass. And then Malkin had one of those kick passes off the boards.
Yeah,
we look at these guys, we judge these guys on scoring, and obviously that's the point of the game. But they make some plays, some minor plays throughout the game that are just ridiculous.
Yeah, they're special players. I know that there's been a lot of talk about the chemistry between Malkin and Jokinen this year, and they do have chemistry, but I still would like to see at some point the Penguins acquire just a space eater, just a big guy to go to the net on that line. And I know they've tried that before, like with Ponikarovsky, didn't work out. Ruslan Fedotenko filled that role for Malkin. I just feel that they need somebody to draw defenders on that line and to open up some space. I just don't think Jokinen is that guy. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I get that sense a little bit. Although I did think Jokinen was really good tonight.
He's a good player.
But what would make the Penguins a favorite for the Cup is if Jokinen was playing that well and he was a third liner, not a second liner. On a good team, if you get that, he should be a third liner.
No question.
But I don't know what you do about this problem, because Bo Bennett hasn't necessarily done much to earn time with Malkin. But this is sort of the question of the Bilesma era, is does the young person have to be given the opportunity first or earn the opportunity? And how do you earn the opportunity when you're playing with Brandon Sutter and Tanner Glass?
Definitely. Bo Bennett has not been the Bo Bennett that we came to know last year so far. And I don't know how much of that is attributable to rust. You could say the same thing about James Neal. He's not where he was last year or before the injury, and it just may take these guys some time. But I agree with you. Putting Bo Bennett, I'm never going to feel good about it. I'm never going to feel good about Bo Bennett on the line with Brandon Sutter. Just that quick shift he had with Crosby. I think it was in the first period. He played a bit with Crosby, and that was by far the most noticeable he's been. He had a chance right in front. You need to give a kid like that a chance to remember who he is. You can't stick him with a bunch of scrubs.
Yeah, he doesn't even have a goal this season. So
you lose your identity. He's like the invisible man.
Yeah, he's like a young guy, and he doesn't have any goals. You got to put him out there and sort of force feed him a goal. Get him out there with the better players so he can get on the scoreboard and get a little confidence. Confidence goes a long way for these young guys.
Yeah, you need to stand behind them, looking over his shoulder, hold him close, look in a mirror and say, "I see you," to Bo Bennett. "I see you, Bo Bennett."
Who needs to do that? Dan Bilesma or Crosby?
I would do it.
You want to hold Bo Bennett on your lap and stare in a mirror together?
Not necessarily on my lap, but I would hold him close. I would look over his shoulder. Two of us would gaze into the mirror, and I would say, I see you. I recognize you.
And what would he have to say there to make you
He doesn't need to say anything. He doesn't need to say a thing. He would know. At that point, he would know. I think he needs that.
He needs to be seen. You're right. The other positive I wanted to mention is I think the Penguins' team defense was very good tonight. You can nitpick a lot of individual guys who I didn't think were great. Bortuzzo wasn't very good. Englund wasn't very good. Letang had his negative moments, as he often does. But I don't think the Flyers had a lot of grade A chances tonight. Do you?
The team defense is vastly improved from last year. What you're seeing now is a team, and in the last couple games we played with the Flyers and the Blues, we gave up a grand total of 4 goals in the 2 games against teams that are playing pretty well. Very good team defense, and we're missing our 2 best defensive defensemen in Scuderi and Paul Martin. And I think what this shows is as you say, the team defense is vastly improved because, under other circumstances, we could completely fall apart without Martin and Scuderi. We're holding it together. We're playing a sound game. But the defense is not stacked, as so many people said it was early in the season when you take those 2 keystones out of the lineup. Because they really make everything else, everybody else falls into their slot, and the defense has the potential to be truly outstanding at full capacity, but it's really well below that right now.
Some interesting minutes numbers tonight. I'm looking now. Bortuzzo, 9 minutes, 25 seconds. Derek Englund, 12:45. Ole Mata, 19:26. That's a lot for a young guy. That's a lot of minutes.
Yeah, he's a top 4 defenseman right now. Bortuzzo and Englund are both number 6, or it's like a number 6 and a number 7 defenseman playing 10 minutes for the Penguins, and that's going to make you weaker. There's just no getting around that. But Ole Mata, it's amazing. He's impressive. He's really stepped up.
Yeah, I thought he was good, and like we've said, if we're going to jump on Bilesma for not giving the young guys an opportunity, then when he actually does give them an opportunity, we got to be patient in our evaluation. So with Mata, you got to look at it like he played 19:26. I don't think he was overly noticeable one way or the other, but that's 19 minutes and 26 seconds more experience he has against a tough rival, and he'll be a better player for it.
Yeah, all I can tell you about Mata is when Bortuzzo plays with Mata, really solid 6 defenseman Bob Bortuzzo. Tonight he was with Englund, and he was a noticeable weak link in the defense. And you have to attribute that difference to Ole Mata, I think. He's a really stabilizing player.
Sidney Crosby, 26:44 of ice time tonight.
Too much.
That's too much. Yeah, that's
way too much.
You can't sustain that. But look, that's a problem because they're playing Joe Vitale 8 minutes, Tanner Glass 9 minutes, Craig Adams 9 minutes, Brandon Sutter only getting 13 and a half minutes. I mean,
can the Penguins win a Stanley Cup with Brandon Sutter as their third line center?
Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me?
It's a question that needs to be asked.
What do you think my answer is going to be? I think he's a lemon. I think he stinks. I think we got sold a bill of goods with Brandon Sutter. I don't think he's a good player. It's like I think we bought a car and it just doesn't work. We're constantly taking it into the shop or it just never hits 65 miles an hour. He sucks. Like there's passes that come right on his stick that roll off of his stick. And I've played hockey not nearly at the level that these guys play at, but I know that you can spot the worst players by their inability to catch passes. It's the most obvious sign that a guy is either not like he either just has terrible hands or he doesn't have the ice awareness to know that there's nobody around him and he's not going to get hit. If you can't catch a pass when you're wide open, you suck. And like that's why Crosby catching passes in his feet when he's in traffic, that's why he's the best player in the world. And a guy like Sutter who's just so soft on the puck, he drives me nuts. So my answer is no. I don't think we can win the Stanley Cup with Brandon Sutter as our third-line center. I'm not sure we can win the Stanley Cup with Brandon Sutter as our fourth-line center. I'm not sure that Brandon Sutter is an NHL caliber player. And my question to you would be, if Brandon Sutter was a free agent right now, what would his contract be? What would someone sign him for?
I just want to be clear about how you feel about Brandon Sutter.
I'm trying not to be negative, but you brought it up. I wasn't going to bring him up at all. Why are you doing this to me? You're making me like this. You don't understand how much he bothers me. I'm trying not to be negative. People say we're too negative. I'm trying not to be, and you're like, tell me what you think about Brandon Sutter. You're baiting me. You know I can't resist.
Let me ask you a question. If we had a scenario like in the movie Goon or in the movie Heat where you walk into a diner and it's empty, except for Brandon Sutter sitting in a booth, what do? Do you go over and you have to eat? It's the only place open. It's the middle of the night. Do you go over and you take a seat opposite Brandon Sutter? Do you pretend you don't see him and you just like sit at another table? How do you handle that?
Well, I like to think of myself sort of as the character that's already in the diner. And I want him to come and sit with me, and then I want to chain smoke right in his face and say, and just tell him that he's not being a man. He's not being tough. He's just so soft on the ice. I don't know what else to say. Like, he's just really soft. If I was Jeff Ireland, I would have Richie Incognito try to toughen Brandon Sutter up or something. Like, I just don't like him as a player. I don't think he's good. I'm sorry to everybody in the Sutter family. I know it's a good hockey family, but
I can't believe you would bully Brandon Sutter.
I don't know why, like, there's a hesitation by sort of the Penguins community to recognize this. Like, what are we waiting for? Maybe it's because he hasn't even played a full 82 games with the Penguins, but I just feel like if there were signs, we would have seen them by
now. Okay.
Do you agree? I mean, look, don't let me be the whole bearer of bad news with Sutter. What do you think?
Listen, I don't have the venom towards him that I think maybe I'm just perceiving this here that you do. But the fact that there's no third line configuration involving Brandon Sutter that makes me feel good. You know, you could put Bo Bennett on that line. You could put Jussi Jokin on that line. You can make it more of a checking line with Tanner Glass and Craig Adams, whatever you want to do. I don't feel good about a line centered by Brandon Sutter. And that's sort of where it begins and ends for me. I just don't feel good about it.
No, and
that's all there is to it.
Right before the Flyers' first goal was a shooting gallery for the Flyers against Sutter and Tanner Glass when they were on the ice together.
Yeah.
And Tanner Glass gets credit because he blocked 3 shots, but they were grade A slap shots from the point. So how about getting the puck out of the zone?
Yeah, I'm with you. So you want to change the subject and talk about the Steelers for a minute?
Sure.
Do you know that today the Steelers practiced and there was not a single member of the starting offensive line that was able to practice?
I didn't even know. So who did Guy Wimper play all 5 positions of the offensive line in practice?
Guy Wimper across the board. At this point, I was going to say maybe we should do a study, the health of the Steelers offensive line these last couple of years versus other teams in the league. You don't even need to do a study. We already know the answer here. These guys, there's something wrong. Either we're drafting guys that are just incapable. You want to talk about soft. They're incapable of staying healthy. I mean, why are other people's offensive lines allowed to maintain some semblance of health? Or are they all popping biceps and triceps because, of something that they're taking? Do we have a bad trainer? This is like beyond just coincidence at this point, isn't it?
It seems like it has to be.
What is going on?
I don't know. I mean, part of it could be that they're getting hurt because they're not that good and they're sort of physically overmatched out there. And so it's like actually dangerous for them to play football because they're not good. It's a chicken or the egg situation. Or maybe they're not good because they're always hurt. I don't know.
I've never seen anything like this, ever.
I don't know. What do you call it when one offensive lineman dives at the knees of another offensive lineman and breaks that or rips that other one's ACL? Is that bad luck? Is that bad coaching? What is that?
It may just be a preemptive strike because they know they're going to get hurt anyway. I'm just going to take this guy out. I'm doing him a favor.
But
I don't want him to get taken out by something worse next week.
I mean, I guess the only reason why I wouldn't say like that's ever an excuse is because when we have seen these guys healthy, it's not like they're that impressive. It's not like Mike Adams is all that impressive when he's healthy. I think DeCastro and Pouncey, if they're healthy, are legitimate starting offensive linemen. I don't know about the rest.
I guess. I don't know about DeCastro. I just don't know. I haven't studied the game tape like Mark Caboli of the Trib, you know. I'm going by what other people tell me. I guess he should be good.
You don't rewatch the games on Mondays?
I'm not breaking down the video. I got to be honest with you.
Steelers play Detroit this weekend. Is that right?
Yeah, it should be fascinating to watch Megatron take up residence on Gay Island for 60 minutes.
Yeah, do you think he's going to have an all-inclusive stay on Gay Island?
I think he may move around. I think he may sample Gay Island and, move over, try out Ike Taylor. I mean, this guy, he must just absolutely be salivating at the thought of going up against the Steelers secondary. Last week against the Bills, I was at that game, and it was just so boring. It was just one of the more painful games you could possibly picture. It was like watching a game from 1986, where there were like 42 running plays. And, if necessary on third down, they'd throw it up in the air, but it was just so bad. But that was a team without a competent quarterback. So the Steelers could, just play a very basic defensive game and succeed. But if you have a quarterback with any precision and arm strength and ability in this league, they just eat up the Steelers. And I expect that to happen this weekend with Stafford.
Do you think that the Steelers have a shot at the playoffs right now? They're only 2 games out of the wild card.
I think the Steelers have 0 shot at the playoffs. It's not a good team.
They're 2 games out of the wild card with the tiebreaker over the Jets.
Yeah, I think that, teams are often mathematically alive at this point in the season. If you're not, you're probably 0-8.
Oakland is similarly mathematically alive to Pittsburgh, and they had the tiebreaker over Pittsburgh.
Yeah, good for Oakland. I just know that every other team in the AFC North is better than the Steelers. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence that they're going to pull this off.
But they're also not even good, the other teams in the AFC North.
No, they're not good at all. The Browns are bad. The Ravens are mediocre at best. And the Bengals are, I would say maybe above average, but certainly not a team that can just show up and expect to win. That's for sure.
I thought of an over-under today I want to get your take on. Over-under on number of Super Bowls that will be won through the remainder of their careers by Roethlisberger and Eli Manning. And the number is 0.5.
Well, I would have to take the under on that one. I mean, both guys are 31 years old. Both teams are.
I think Eli's like 33, actually.
Is he that old?
Yeah, he's
it's
old.
It's a rebuilding phase for both teams. I think it would be, certainly, it wouldn't surprise me if one of them got a Super Bowl, but it's not something that I think is a high percentage bet.
Yeah, I'd take the under too. I was just looking, because we joke about Roethlisberger.
You take the under too.
Yeah, I take the under. Yeah, we joke about Roethlisberger a lot, but I actually think we've sort of seen this year that some of the people that we all thought were going to become something, it just, he's not the most consistent guy anymore. He used to be a lot more consistent. Now he sort of has really good games and then some really awful games. But he's still a top 12 quarterback. There's a class that he's not in, and he's not even close to being in. That's sort of upper echelon. But then on any given day, he's just as good as anybody else in the league.
Yeah. I've always thought that. And if I were Ben Roethlisberger right now, this whole thing about him wanting to be traded that he is so vociferously denying right now, I don't know that I wouldn't be clamoring for that. The way this organization is being run right now is it's abominable. And he's 31 years old. He's got a bunch of good years left. If there was the right opportunity in another city, and I didn't have a particular allegiance to Pittsburgh, which, I do, but if I were him, I would definitely explore that option.
Well, the option is obvious. The option is BA.
Arizona's got a pretty good defense. Got Larry Fitzgerald. It's not a bad option, the BA option. So on that note, thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next time, GTOG.